Okay, so today we're taking a look at the XIAO RP2040, which is a microcontroller using the same chip as the Raspberry Pi Pico. It's just smaller. So let's dive straight into the video. So first of all, right here, as you can see in my hand, the XIAO RP2040 right next to the Raspberry Pi Pico, it's just a ton smaller. And yes, it is that Pico. So, the XIAO RP2040, as it says in its name, is using the RP2040 chip, which is, like I said before, the same one from the Pico. It's a dual-core ARM Cortex M0 Plus CPU. It has 264 kilobytes of SRAM and 200 megabytes of onboard flash memory. This is no Raspberry Pi, obviously, a full size. It has 11 GPIO pins, a USB-C, which is something that the Pico does not have, which USB-C is always great to see. It has 11 digital pins, 4 analog pins, 4 PWM pins, reset and boot buttons, and its size is just 20 by 17.5 millimeters, whereas the Pi Pico is 51 by 21 millimeters. So it is a good chunk shorter. The width isn't that much different, but it definitely is shorter. So, this board supports all of the similar software that the Pico does, in that it supports Arduino, MicroPython, CircuitPython, so like I mentioned before, it's smaller. So, we've talked about the similarities, and in many ways, these two microcontrollers are very, very similar. Well, what about the differences? So, I did say that the RP2040, or the XIAO RP2040, actually has USB-C, which is something the Raspberry Pi Pico does not have, and I would give a point to the XIAO RP2040 for that, because USB-C is always awesome to see. However, the XIAO RP2040 actually only has 11 GPIO pins, which is a lot less than the Raspberry Pi Pico, and the reason for having less is just because it's a much smaller device. So if you're someone who doesn't really use the GPIO pins, then the XIAO RP2040 is going to be great for you. It's really small compared to the Pico, but if you really do need those extra GPIO pins, you might have to consider actually going for the Pico. And the price for the XIAO RP2040, well, it's just around $5.40 or something similar to that, so it definitely is not expensive. So it's not that bad. But if you were wanting some microcontroller that is extremely tiny, has the same functionality as the Pico, this could be the thing for you. Well, what about trying to install or run some program on this? Well, let's jump over to my computer. But first of all, we are going to connect this USB-C to USB-A cable to the XIAO RP2040 and the USB-A side to my PC. And we're going to jump over to my desktop and try coding in Thonny. Alright, so now we are on my desktop, and as you can see right here, the XIAO RP2040 is connected to my computer as an object that we can actually use like a USB drive, and you access this by pressing the boot key before plugging in the USB-C cable to plug it into your computer, but it works pretty well. But like I said, we are going to be creating a mouse jiggler with this, just to see how it actually works out. But I do want to give credit to YouTuber Nova Spirit Tech, since this whole thing is basically just what he did in his video, so you can watch his too if you are interested. But he uses a Raspberry Pi Pico. I'm going to be using the XIAO RP2040. But first of all, we need to go to this website right here, which is CircuitPython, and we need to download that for the Raspberry Pi Pico. But this software should work just fine on our XIAO RP2040 too, because they support the same software, which is really awesome. So we're going to go to downloads, and I'm going to find that right here. I'm just going to copy it straight over to my RP2040, and it's just copying it over real fast. Okay, so now it's back, and now it's titled Circuit PY instead of whatever it was called before. So that's awesome that it's like that now, but let's restart Thonny real fast. Okay, so I got the XIAO RP2040 to actually connect to Thonny. The experience was not as seamless as I would have expected, and it took me a little bit of time to figure it out. But basically what I was able to do, I went to run select interpreter, I went CircuitPython generic, and try to detect port automatically, and eventually it found my Raspberry Pi Pico right here, which it is not a Raspberry Pi Pico, but it recognizes it as one because it has the same chip. So we actually are going to be coding inside of this code.py file, and this is on our XIAO RP2040. So I'm going to hit File, I'm going to go Open, and CircuitPython device. Hit code.py, hit Open, and there was one thing on here right now, which is print hello world, and if we wanted to try it, we could try running this, and it says hello world. Of course, you could have it do something else like subscribe. We could try running that. And there we go, it puts it on a Raspberry Pi Pico and it runs it. You might ask, well, what if we tried some math? Well, we could try some 9 plus 9. Let's see if that works out. And it goes 18. What if we tried to make it a little bit harder? I mean, this board is going to be figuring this out no problem, I'm pretty sure, and this thing can do the job just fine. So I mean, that's very simple stuff. What about a mouse jiggler? That was the project I had mentioned before. So for this, we are actually going to be using some of Nova Spirit Tech's code that he published on GitHub. I will leave this in the description below, but I'm just going to copy this code from right here and actually paste it in here real fast. So we'll just delete that real fast, paste that in here. So we are importing quite a few modules right here: time, USB HID, Adafruit HDMI board, Digitalio, those stuff right there. That got all slurred in there, but those are what we're importing. But for this to work correctly, we actually are going to want to go Tools, Manage Packages. We're going to search for Adafruit HID. So we are going to need the Adafruit CircuitPython HID module right here. We're going to hit install, and hopefully this will install it without any issues for us. Alright, so as you can see right now, that is done installing. So we could run the code right now, but if you want a quick overview of the code, basically this is telling our mouse to move in different places. And so like, you would want to use this if you just don't want your computer to go to sleep, or you're playing some game or something and you don't want your computer to go to sleep at all. You could use a homemade mouse clicker just like this. So well, let's try running the code and see if it's actually functional. So we'll hit the run current script. It's going to add it to our Raspberry Pi Pico, and let's see if it works. Watch that, watch that. See my mouse right there? It's just moving left, right, left, right, left, right, and it's just doing its job right there. And that is basically what this code does. And with a device so small like this, $5.40, I mean, it's probably better just to buy one of these and make it a mouse clicker rather than purchasing a mouse clicker instead, because if you ever didn't need a mouse clicker, this would do the job. So it's really cool that this device is very versatile like it is right here. But if we could go ahead and we could try to stop the code. It's hard to use my computer. Okay, so here, like, if you wanted to try something else, you could change the move to 1000. We could try go 300 here. We could go and change the move to like 400 right here, and we could see what would happen. So let's plug in our device right here, and now we can hit F5 to load up the new code and see how that changes stuff up. You see it's moving our mouse way longer than it was before. So you can play with this code, and of course you are not limited to this amount of code. Alright, so we've come to the end of this video, and you guys can let me know what you think of the XIAO RP2040 down in the comments below. But honestly, I think if you want something like a Raspberry Pi Pico, just much smaller, it's not going to take up much space at all, and it does support USB-C, if those are on your wish list, then this is a great option, and it's just $5.40, so it's pretty affordable too. So honestly, I would recommend it. It seems to do everything fairly well, and it does support anything that a Raspberry Pi Pico does. As we saw, even the computer recognizes it as a Raspberry Pi Pico, so pretty awesome, I would say. So if you enjoyed the video, a sub to the channel would be amazing, a like to the video would be incredible, and thanks for watching.